Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Braintree District Council Cabinet. As you can see, those of you who are watching either live on the YouTube or later, you will see that we are socially distanced within here. We have some officers who are joining us online, so we can keep the numbers down, and there are no fire exercises planned for this evening, so in the event of the fire alarm going, we will leave by the appropriate exit doors. Okay, I'll move on as far as the agenda is concerned then to apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Parker and Councillor Van Dolken, who may be watching us on screen, but has sent apologies. Are there any others? I think otherwise we're a full house. Yes? Yeah, okay, thank you. Move on to item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest that any member has? Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I declare a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council, as mentioned in the Bouncing Back Together report and also the performance management reports as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I will add a similar declaration as a member of Essex County Council. Any other declarations of interest? No? Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting, that's the meeting that was held on the 18th of October. They have been circulated. Are you happy that I sign them as a true record? Great. Thank you. Item 4, public question time. There are no public questions this evening. That therefore takes us to item 5, item 5A, bouncing back together. Members will recall that we did have this on our last agenda on the 18th of October, which was the weekend of the murder of Sir David Amess, MP, and we felt it was inappropriate that night to go into the details of this. But we have brought it back on so that there is an opportunity for Cabinet members to outline various aspects of their portfolio that they would like to draw to our attention and to the public attention, and also an opportunity for questions to be asked. Hopefully everyone has seen the paper and has a copy of the document, which sets out our plan through to March 2023. You'll recall that we extended the time due to COVID in terms of the what would have been the normal, let me get the years right, the 2021, so sorry, 1920 into the mid-20, and then we brought one in for the 18 months, taking us up to March 2023. And the document that you have before you today shows the main priorities that we will be pursuing. So without more ado, I'll leave it to members of Cabinet who particularly want to draw attention. Councillor Cunningham, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to speak to a couple of just 2 or 3 areas of the shared corporate priority, and I'm sure when you go round the table, Mr. Chairman, colleagues who also work on the joint priority of connecting people, places and prosperity will, I'm sure, want to make their own observations. First of all, with regard to town centre support, in the Bouncing Back plan, there's been a key focus on the need to carry out improvements in the town centre. In Braintree, we are near completion of an ambitious project, and the benefits have already started to be felt by the town centre. We're very fortunate a week past Saturday to have our very successful light switch on event, and it was really great to see an event in line with the 2019 event, which seems a long time ago, pre-pandemic, but a very clear indicator of the town of Braintree bouncing back. Obviously, our excitement and pleasure in the pedestrianisation project is balanced by a sense of disappointment as to how long it has taken, and we acknowledge that as an authority. We're sorry for that, and I think we're very grateful for the forbearance and the patience of the businesses and the residents of Braintree, who share our enthusiasm for quick completion, and the end of that is in sight. This allied to the major project at Victoria Square, and the completion of that in the not too distant future is indicative of a real boost to the town, to the Braintree town centre. Extremely mindful that both Witham and Helsted are quite rightly wanting to know when it'll be their turn for town centre improvements. Work being carried out behind the scenes, and we'll be able to update members in those areas clearly of the direction of travel early in the new year. And these physical improvements are one thing, but they'll also be complemented by working with all three local communities to try and bring forward events and other initiatives that help incentivise people to visit those town centres, increase footfall and boost the local recovery. Another key element of the plan is the refresh of our economic plan for growth and understanding the role we can play in supporting economic recovery. Since the changing of our business support arrangements in 2018, we've been able to ensure that we have been able to offer the relevant business support that's not duplicated in a wider market, really relevant to the needs of Braintree District and business. And this will be, of course, a strong focus as we refresh and go through this period of much longed for economic and social recovery. Our major projects of Horizon 120 and the smaller project of iConstruct both have a high emphasis on providing business support. The Enterprise Centre at Horizon 120, which is moving on at great pace, has a business support element in line with the capital project that's been being delivered, having secured £7 million of government funding from the Get Building Fund last year. And we have to make sure we get that business support right, and significant work is going on behind the scenes to ensure that we do that. As a district, we are rightly proud that the capital investment in Horizon 120 has not only delivered a superb building, which is just about being completed, but we remain extremely excited and positive about the support already being delivered to the construction industry and the support that will continue to give to the construction industry in years ahead. And a key focus on us is to work with the Haven Gateway Partnership, Essex County Council and other providers to ensure that business support continues beyond December 2020. This was an intervention well beyond the considered remit of a second-tier authority, and it's one that we, as I say, are rightly pleased that we intervened to support and bring forward, relevant before the pandemic, but ever more relevant as we come out of the pandemic, but particularly with a greater emphasis on the green and climate change agenda, how you can lock in sustainable construction methods into building houses and communities going forward. And delighted to say that Horizon 120 continues to generate the interest and enthusiasm from the business community, once again demonstrating how we have invested in bringing jobs into the wider Braintree District area, really levering in that inward investment at a time when it's never been more needed. And finally, I just want to say something on the green agenda and how the economic development agenda and prospectus of authority links into that. As mentioned, when in the climate change, a focus on supporting the green economy is running through the organisation, and as an economic development function, we want to make sure that we can work with the rest of the organisation so that we are well primed to take advantage of any external funding opportunities to promote that and to help create green jobs in our local Braintree District local economy, appreciating that we have transferable skills and advanced manufacturing that could be highly relevant, and looking for opportunities to upskill our workforce, a workforce that's going through a period of, an adult workforce that's going through a period of transition. Many of adult working age who perhaps found their working opportunities cut down because of the COVID pandemic, and always looking for opportunities to help reskill and support an adult working population, as we are all ages of the population, to have the relevant skills to face the working challenges of future years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. I'll take questions, I think, on each one as we go along, and rather than... Are there any questions to Councillor Cunningham on... Councillor Mrs Pell.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. It's called Connecting People and Places. Where I live at the moment, people are not able to connect as they used to be, and particularly the villagers, because the public transport is not working any longer as it should be. We know it's lack of drivers, but young people can't get to schools where they need to be on time. They can't get to their training facilities. Some people who live in a village maybe get a bus to come into town because they come here to go to the bank. Then they don't know when they're going to get back home, or if not, they're standing for a couple of hours at a time in the middle of a village waiting for a bus. They really need some help, because for them, it's their livelihood, a lot of them. And for the young people, it's their training that is being neglected. Thank you.
I appreciate the points Councillor Mrs Pell is making, and in terms of infrastructure and the connectivity side, that does now come under Councillor Mrs Spray, but I will I will sort of try and add a couple of thoughts. I don't know if Mrs Spray wants to add anything else, but getting people to their place of work, I think, is a really important point, and through the Horizon 120 project, working with Essex County Council, through GridServe, we're looking at opportunities to bring, how we can bring people from a wider area into that employment site. Also, we want to have conversations with both Essex County Council and Stansted Airport to see what the opportunities are to bring people to the airport. The airport is recovering well compared to other airports in the country, which for our local economy is really good news. There are jobs being advertised at the airport, not both sort of aviation and also in the services provided in the terminal. There's pent-up demand, but we've got to see what role we can play, if any, in trying to link the two together, and that again is going to be something beyond just the remit of our authority, but we will certainly be working with others to see what we can do.
Could I just add to that and draw Councillor Mrs Pell's attention to the fact that Essex County Council at the moment are consulting on a Bus Back Better, which is their new bus strategy. That's currently on their website. The deadline for responding is the 3rd of December. And I know there is a feeling that actually the bus companies themselves need to do more. They need to be more proactive in publicising their services, etc. And that's part of the discussions that the County Council will be having, because there is undoubtedly a feeling that we do need to have a comprehensive bus service across the county. But I would just draw the attention to Bus Back Better on the Essex County Council website, which is currently being done. Councillor Mrs Spray and then Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Chairman. Just, I would entirely agree with everything that Councillor Cunningham has said. Just in response to Councillor Pell's particular issues around a shortage of drivers and so on, it is a problem nationwide at the moment. It's a sort of particular problem that's come about for a number of reasons. I do know that the bus companies are trying to recruit additional drivers. I know that from various social media threads that I follow. They're doing their best to remedy the situation. But also, the Councillor Butler referred to the Bus Back Better consultation. This authority's consultation response letter was submitted this morning. I was sent it by officers late on Friday to have a look at. I think it's a very good response. Amongst other things, it is asking the bus companies to pay particular attention to rural routes where we know there are problems about getting people into the towns to do their shopping, getting children to school and so on. And also, I was pleased to see things that I think are often overlooked, like we need to provide better bus shelters. Things like that. So it was a very good, I think, very comprehensive response from our officers. But yeah, I acknowledge it is a particular problem at the moment, particularly the shortage of drivers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The Cabinet member talked about all the schemes, and obviously we're well familiar with many of those in terms of where they are in Braintree, and he will be aware of my concern about the investment gearing, the percentage of capital investment this authority is putting into basically the town of Braintree and nearby. Is there any view being taken for next year, because I appreciate we couldn't have the detailed discussion at the PMB as we normally would, but I know that's coming up, as to whether that gearing will be changed, given that 50% of the population of the district actually live in villages? And can you be more specific about when we will see investment in Witham, because it always seems to be jammed tomorrow on the improvements to the town centre. I see later on in the report there is mention of potential movement on health, but have we got any dates on that? And specific to one village, which he won't be surprised me mentioning, all my attempts in recent years to get investment into Silver End, which is a very substantial village now with all the new housing, and has pockets of deprivation, seem to have fallen on deaf ears. There's three specific things I've repeatedly asked for. There's been no dialogue with me or Councillor Wright about how we might be able to get capital investment in the villages from this authority. So can he explain why we're being ignored on that front? Thank you.
I'll try and pick up, Chairman, if you're happy, I'll try and pick up a couple of those points, but I don't know if you wanted to say something about our overall approach to Witham as it's an overall strategy.
I will do. Just simply that this morning I had a one-to-one with the leader of Witham Town Council, Councillor Lager, about some of the proposals that we are beginning to consider for Witham, and have arranged that some of his colleagues will come and join us as we look at them collectively. So it was a very positive meeting, and both of us recognise the issues that are in Witham, but also how some of them might be solved. So I'm relatively confident that we will see some significant announcements in the relatively near future on Witham, and I'd like to do it in partnership with Witham Town Council.
Just a couple of things. I'm not the overall cabinet member responsible for investment. Investment is split between four colleagues and as part of the investment development programme board. But I think it's worth just acknowledging that circumstances have also helped determine investment in Braintree. For example, the bus park, to use the Braintree term for it, was Braintree District Council owned land. So that gave us opportunities to do something there that we wouldn't have otherwise. Great Notley employment land was an area designated in the original Great Notley master plan some 30 years ago that wasn't built out to fruition. There was a market opportunity there that was very clear, very obvious, that perhaps hasn't presented itself in other parts of the district. And again, iConstruct was built on a land that, on Springwood, that had become part of the district council again when we finished our arrangements with Ignite. So there's opportunities that determine that investment. Also with the High Street was semi-pedestrianised. It had significant highway failure, so part of the funding package was secured from county to deal with those issues, and we were very fortunate to be able to get a grant from central government to help bring forward those improvements. So that turbocharged our ability to do things. But I appreciate that isn't necessarily comfort to residents in the other parts of the district. The town centre improvements in Witham have been talked about for some time. We were very close to in 2018 to develop the Market Square. Unfortunately, we were thwarted because the Highways Authority wasn't happy to sign off those schemes. It's back in the mix and it's moving along very nicely with a view to bringing full plans forward early in the new year. As I say, it's unfortunate that there has been a time delay, but as Councillor Butland said, I think Witham in particular will see quite an exciting package coming through in upcoming months. With regard to Silver End, I'm sure if Councillor Abbott and his ward colleague Councillor Wright had an interesting and socially, economic, financially benefit proposal For any site in Silverend, I'm quite sure the authority would look at it and look at it very fully.
Thank you very much. Just picking up on one other thing relating to Councillor Mrs Pell and bus services. If you do have a look at that report, it is interesting in terms of the total amount that's been invested in bus services over the last 4 years, which is some £70 million in Essex. Now, the bulk of that is on provision of services for school children and concessionary fares and that sort of thing. In terms of the specific bus projects, the total in the county is 5.6 million, of which 2.1 million was actually spent in the Braintree district. So, for example, not just in Braintree itself, with obviously the Braintree bus park, but new bus stops at Kelvedon, at the railway station, at Finchingfield Doctor's Surgery and at Sybil Headingham, so improving areas in the countryside, enhancements improving access in Bocking, a new bus stop in Whittam to serve the Aldi food store, and also enhancements in Forest Road and on Lawrence Avenue, and also 1.1 million for digital demand responsive services to electric minibuses. So we are doing quite well in terms of getting that, but there is, I accept, much more to be done in terms of getting bus travel as a first choice rather than a bit further down the line. So we want to get people out of cars and onto buses. Okay, I'll move on to Councillor McKee. Anything you want to draw to our attention, Councillor McKee?
Yes, and I'm addressing my comments on delivering and innovating. And before I make any comments at all, I'd just remind people and everyone, including the webcast, that we're just waiting for a financial settlement from the government. It hasn't yet been received. We're hoping it's a 3-year settlement, but that's not yet confirmed. And clearly, if we are delivering service to our residents, we do need to have the finances in order to do that. So I'm just prefacing my remarks by the reality of where we are with the government and its agreement to its CSR and its settlement. I'm attending a meeting tomorrow at Essex County Council, only hoping to find out more, because they seem to have some inside information, and we hope we hear more tomorrow. December, I think, is the date we're given when we'll have that information. I'll address a few remarks on the digital strategy, which is not a new thing. We've had it for several years, and we have 3 components: digital council, digital customer, and digital district. Unfortunately, one of the upsides of COVID, and there were some, about efficiency and effectiveness within the authority, because we delivered the majority of our current digital strategy during the pandemic, because we had to, in fact, implement working from home and issuing laptops and changing our infrastructure to enable that working to go on regardless of people not being able to get into the office. So that was a ahead of time delivery of that strategy. The plan now is that in 21-22, that was 2021 delivery, 21-22, we are now focusing on hybrid working, which already was a part of the strategy. So that will be built out. The infrastructure will continue to be built out during this year. And at the end of this year and early into next year, we'll issue a new, refreshed digital strategy to take forward the work we've done into the next 2 to 3 years. And those will be extending our services, online booking services, including the town hall, enterprise centres, paying bills, and making greater use of web services. We're already, in fact, announced in the infrastructure in place and starting to, in the town hall, to be able to book any of our venues, and that's the town hall and the Horizon 120, which clearly isn't on site yet, but we're preparing for the infrastructure for that, and the innovation centre. So those will be 3 venues that customers can come in and book using and pay for and get billed for using digital services as part of our strategy. I'll talk a few remarks about the assessment of customer information and feedback. The next assessment we'll have is spring/summer 2022, and that's year 2 of a rolling programme. And areas to focus include customer access channels and how we ensure our customer understand data complaints procedure, monitoring standards, performance targets with a focus on quality. So that's only remarks, but I will actually just point out this whole plan is now on our website. It's been up for about a week, 2 weeks, I think, immediately following, no, before the meeting. We planned to announce it. It was put up. If you check it, all of this document is actually on the website, so any resident anywhere can read and follow where we are with our plan. That's all I plan to say, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor McKee. Any questions to Councillor McKee? Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure whether it's mentioned actually in this report or on the next item, but you talked about sort of hybrid system, and I think it says with staff predominantly working from home. Now, is that the view of the administration? I understand that there have been surveys and that's the expressed desire of staff. They certainly prefer to work at home, but is it the intention that staff will work predominantly at home in the future?
Councillor McKee.
Well, if I did use the word predominantly, I didn't mean to. I think appropriately would be the right adjective, and the reason for that is, one of the things we are currently doing, or in the process of implementing, is to allow planners to take digital infrastructure out with them on their task. So they're now working remotely, but not at home. So this whole strategy is allowing people to carry on wherever their task is, regardless of their location, as though their location was where it previously had been here. It can now be anywhere. Now, we are planning on a lower number of people. Then, when I say planning, it's not complete yet, as to who will be on a day-to-day basis in this building, as opposed to day-to-day working from some other location, because it's not just this location. We've got other locations which it also applies to. But the preference will be to have people working where it's appropriate from a location where they feel most comfortable and able to deliver the services to our residents. So I don't think we're forcing anyone to work from home, and we're not forcing anybody to work here unless your role demands you are here to do the role. I mean, it's clearly customer services, it's largely here. Now, what has been happening is, and I think it's referred to in our performance report, is that the technology required to provide that service when they're not all here all the time is different. To be able to find them, because they've now got at least 3, and should be 2, methods of contacting them when a resident tries to come in through the front door, telephone front door, and get hold of somebody or make a message. They can either be on Teams or go on their telephone, and it's now, of course, network telephones, it's not telephone lines. So we're trying to consolidate that so that a resident, we can find them, we can work out what they're doing, and an appropriate channel to contact them to make sure our service increases, regardless of whether they're here or at home or off-site. Does that answer? Long-winded, no, but does that answer your question? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions to Councillor McKee? No, thank you. Councillor Mrs. Schmidt.
Thank you, Chairman. Amongst our priorities is the continuation of keeping our district clean and well maintained with high quality parks and green spaces. And I think last month's Essex Playing Fields Awards showed that, as ever, we continue to do this job very well when we received 42 awards. We will also continue to work to minimise pollution by promoting sustainable energy sources and transport, and to that end we've already installed 32 electric vehicle charging points. Of course, so much of it is working on our climate change strategy, which I'll come to in a moment, but on some of the smaller things that will mean a lot to certain members of our community. We're creating a garden of remembrance at the Bocking Cemetery, and this will not only provide a peaceful environment for adults, there's a special place, a special part of it for children, because of course children become bereaved. And having seen the plans, this is really a very, very beautiful thing. And for those who sadly have to use it, I'm sure it'll bring a small measure of comfort. As ever, we will continue to refurbish our children's play areas across the district. We've been doing this now for 19 years. And it's important that as new modern play equipment comes along, that it's safe, secure and enjoyable for our young people. One of the most important things, and something that we've been working with for so long and really is part of our climate change strategy, is trying to support by supporting residents and businesses to reduce, reuse and recycle. I find it extremely frustrating that for some reason or other during lockdown people seem to have forgotten that littering is illegal, apart from being fairly disgusting. And there's been an increase, and I don't know really what's going on. I think it's not just in this district, but as ever we will continue with our innovative campaigns to draw people's attention to the fact that it is illegal as well as revolting. We've just completed our trial of the anti-litter signage, and it will be very useful to see the results of that. Certainly in the areas that I've seen them, there has been a definite reduction in litter. It's our residents know, but it's those who are passing through who don't seem to be educated to the same level. But of course, we have done our tree and bulb planting for our residents, where we've given out, provided 18,600 native trees and 73,000 bulbs. Certainly almost 3/4 of these packs have already been taken up by parish councils and community groups, which is really wonderful. And for any that are left over, we've already got plans, although, as you know, so many parts of our district are already covered in swathes of daffodil bulbs, again, that's been going on for some 15 or so years. We're finding other little gaps and places so that every one of these trees and bulbs will be planted. So that is going to be great, not just for the residents to look at, but of course for the environment. But our main thing, of course, is all tied around our climate action strategy, in which everything really revolves. And as actions are set out and come along, then we will try to, we will do them, and try to achieve our long-term aim of being a carbon neutral district by 2030. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Smith, any comments or questions from anyone? Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, lots of good things in that report, but there's one thing I did want to pick up on page 5, which is the continuing support of this authority for the new A120, which, as Councillor Schmidt will know, is proposed to be an offline 4-lane road through open countryside, and which Essex County Council says will double road traffic through the route corridor. How does she think that chimes with promoting sustainable transport, which you just referred to? And how does she think that chimes with everything revolving around our climate strategy? And has this authority, in working with Essex County Council, carried out any form of carbon budget on the new A120? Or if not, is there an intention to do so? Because clearly we are now in an era where, thankfully, everyone is recognising there's a scientific imperative to reduce emissions. In other words, adding up what we're producing and trying to reduce them or to mitigate them or absorb them. So has any of that work been done, or are we just going to carry on supporting a road which will increase our carbon emissions?
Well, I made reference to electric vehicle charging points, which means people will continue to use cars. And no matter what people may say, there are vast numbers of our members of our population that cannot use cycles or walk. To go shopping, they need to use a car. We've heard that there's problems with buses. They've got to be very many more and very much more regular, which is nothing, sadly, to do with us. But what I'm saying is that people will continue to use cars, whether we like it or not. We will continue to have to use vehicles for our work. We will try and get them all over to electric or hydrogen when that comes along. But roads will continue to be needed. And one only has to look at the pollution that's caused on the A120 with the constant traffic jams because the road is unfit for purpose. And as far as I'm aware, but it's only as far as I'm aware, that we haven't worked with Essex County Council on a carbon budget with that, but I will look into it.
Thank you very much. No other questions? Councillor Tattersley.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm proud to be associated with this plan for our district, and I'm particularly pleased that it doesn't look to concentrate on just one or two narrow subjects, and nor does it seek to be negative by looking at what we shouldn't do or what other agencies, such as the NHS or County Council or Environment Agency, should be doing, but rather looking at what we can do ourselves across all of our corporate strategy themes. In Councillor Ritchie and my portfolio area, we've emphasised initiatives which will support bringing communities out of the lethargy caused by extended COVID lockdown, which many of us, me included of course, have been guilty of. And we're looking at initiatives which encourages activity, reduces obesity, generally improving physical and mental health. Now, it remains to be seen if this is going to continue after the implications of the new COVID strains become clearer, and let's hope not. But one issue that came to light during discussions I've had with town and parish councils is that a large number of residents are still relying on the support provided by town and parish councils and voluntary organisations for things like prescription deliveries that they got used to during the lockdown. And there are a large number of people still very concerned about going into places where there are a large number of people congregating. I believe this document reflects on this issue, but that's still work that we've got to do over the coming months.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions, anyone? No? Councillor Bowers.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, like Councillor Tattersley, I'm very proud of this document. I think we should all be. It's got some really good stuff in it. Councillor Cunningham touched on part of what I was going to talk about in regards. We're very excited about the completion of the Victoria Square development. Horizon 120 is continuing at pace. Completion of I-Construct. These really, as Councillor Cunningham said, these really are sizable projects for a second-tier authority, and there'll always be challenges along the way which we find resolutions for, but we should really be proud of what we are delivering as an authority. There was a few parts within the document that I just wanted to touch on from my portfolio. Firstly, housing strategies. Developing a new housing strategy, setting out how the council will support the availability of good quality homes which best meets the needs of the current and future residents is very important, and we believe now is the right time to be thinking of refreshing our housing and homelessness strategies. By reviewing these, we will make sure that they continue to deliver for all of our residents. Affordable housing, we ensure the delivery of 500 affordable homes for the district from April 21 to March 2023. We have a great record on affordable housing, and we are very proud as a council for the continued success with our affordable homes delivery. This is always a challenging area to be able to provide affordable housing for those who require it. We always seem to be able to rise to that challenge, and we plan to continue that record over the next 18 months. And with an enterprise centres is referenced, and continue the delivery of the Horizon 120 Enterprise Centre and work towards an enterprise centre for Whittam, working alongside our asset management portfolio. There will be a constant strive towards revenue opportunities, which will then enable us to improve the lives of our residents. And just wanted to mention on the skills agenda, we just want to ensure skills and the training provision is aligned to meet the needs of the local economy now and in the future. Continue our work with the education providers and local businesses to maximise the opportunities in the skills sector. Working with partners is so important that residents have the access to skills programmes and the required education to access those employment opportunities. These must include new and expanding sectors and also adult skills as well as those for the young. And yeah, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions, anyone? No. Councillor Mrs Spray.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll start with the planning part of my portfolio. As always, the planning department and colleagues continue to be extremely busy, but there is quite a lot of positivity around planning at the moment. With regards to the local plan, we're moving on now towards, I hope, the closing stages of getting Section 2 of our draft local plan found sound. The inspectors have made a number of modifications, but nothing too alarming, I would say. And these modifications and the updated sustainability appraisal were discussed at the local plan subcommittee last Thursday, and it was agreed by all concerned that we could proceed to the 6-week public consultation, and this will be starting shortly. I would just say that to allow for the Christmas and New Year holiday, we are actually extending this to 7 weeks, which I think is a sensible thing to do. The inspectors will then need to consider the consultation responses. They may ask for further revisions, but all being well, they will find Section 2 sound, and I would hope then to be able to bring it to Council for approval early in the new year. In the meantime, as the local plan is now further advanced, it does carry more weight, and together with our just over 5 years, 5.27 years, I think we're at the moment, land supply, this provides some protection when we're looking at speculative planning applications. There is an enforcement review underway. As part of this review, a cross-party members reference group held 4 meetings. I think it was a really positive experience, and actually I would say it makes for a good template for any future member review systems and processes. You know, for fairly sort of sharp, concentrated meetings, very good contributions by everyone involved. And the final report with a number of recommendations has been produced, and these are now being discussed as part of this this round of budgetary discussions. But as an example of how well the enforcement team can work when they really need to act quickly, we had 2 cases of unauthorised occupation of land within the district in October. Those 2 cases were taken to the High Court, and both had very successful outcomes for this council. And this is from a very small enforcement team who are under quite a lot of pressure, but they absolutely got the job done in this case. I just will touch on the Members' Forum, which is something that was proposed and approved at the start of this year as part of the revised scheme of delegation. It's a way in which developers, particularly of larger schemes, can present their proposals to members of the planning committee at an early stage. That's ahead of planning applications actually going in. Relevant ward members would be involved, and also officers. They will not be decision-making meetings in any way, but it's a way of developers giving us a heads up of what they've got planned, and an opportunity for members to have a look and see what might be coming up. Now, I have received a few inquiries from members as to when this forum is going to get going. There was an expectation that we would be starting it before the end of this year, and it's only been delayed because the enforcement review, which I've just spoken about, has actually taken precedence, and I think that's quite right. It was considered that the enforcement process was an urgent matter that needed to be considered. However, I'm fairly confident that we can accelerate the Members' Forum process at the start of the new year and get it going. I know that our Planning Development Manager is talking to governance at the moment about how it's going to work. It's not something that this council has done before. I don't think many councils in the country do, and it requires a little bit of setting up, but we will progress it in the new year. I've just turned to the infrastructure part of my portfolio. I continue to attend regular meetings around the A12 and A120 proposed improvement schemes. The early public consultation on the A12 widening scheme finished recently, and all responses are being considered. I think it's fair to say that there are some concerns around how the scheme will impact on a number of the junctions in our district, And personally, I have said that there's no point in improving the traffic flows on the A12 if it's going to lead to tailbacks on the local roads. Now, I'm not the only councillor within Essex who's made that point at the various meetings. And I would say our concerns are being listened to by the highway authorities and being taken on board. I do think, and I want to say, I do support the A12 and A120 improvements. It is important to keep traffic flowing throughout our district. And I would agree with the comments made by my colleague, Councillor Mrs. Schmidt, that the tailbacks and the traffic jams, which happen frequently on the A12, because it only takes one small breakdown, one small shunt for everything to grind to a halt, you have miles of queuing traffic pumping out exhaust fumes. So for me, the improvements to these major routes throughout our district are really important and will bring benefits. There are a number of NSIPs, that's nationally significant infrastructure projects, planned for the district. A couple of them, the Bramford Twinstead National Grid upgrade. There's a large solar farm proposal on the edge of our district, close to Chelmsford. And then, of course, there's the recent announcement by the Ministry of Justice of their proposals for prisons at Wethersfield. All of these are major projects, they're all being consulted on, and I am keeping an eye on them and attending briefings where it's appropriate for me to do so. And just finally, Chairman, I attended a virtual meeting this morning of Essex planning portfolio holders, chaired by Councillor Wagland. It was a very well attended meeting. I think there were over 30 of us on screen. And the first agenda item was an update on the Built Environment Work Stream, which is from the Climate Action Committee. And this was a section presented by Matthew Thomas from Essex County. He's the Growth and Development Manager, together with our own Senior Officer, Emma Goodings. It was a very good presentation, really interesting session, and prompted some good discussions from those of us who were attending. And that was followed by another presentation from Emma with a report on the Essex Developers Group Climate Action Charter. A lot of discussion around how we make planning fit for purpose in this day and age, with a particular view to green energy and to making our developments, our new builds, sustainable, whilst also bearing in mind we have to retrofit a considerable number of homes to bring them up to standard. But it was really good discussion. I think that's all from me for the moment, Chairman. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Chairman. Through you, you mentioned that we have got a 5-year housing land supply, and that we can give considerable weight now to Section 2 of the Emerging Local Plan because it's so far down the process. And yet we still have occasions where our planning officers, in their professional opinion, recommend approval for speculative sites that are not in our plans. How are we going to resolve that dilemma?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Mann. Well, once the Section 2 of the local plan is actually found sound, which as I'm hoping will be early next year, that will give a good deal more protection. Yes, it gives, we can give it more weight at the moment, but we're not absolutely there. The 5-year land supply it's marginal. As Councillor Mann knows, because we're both on the planning committee, there was a very unfortunate, we think, statement made by a planning inspector just a few weeks ago that she didn't believe we had a 5-year supply. We are standing firm on that. We have reduced it from 5.3 years to 5.2, but we do believe we have a supply, but it's slightly precarious. And I do know that when officers look at some of these major applications, and we've had some quite big ones in recently, and we've got a few more coming up, they do have to balance giving a refusal where we feel the grounds are not absolutely solid and which will lead to an appeal, which we might not win. So it is a balancing act at the moment. I think our position hopefully will be a good deal stronger next year, but in the meantime, we do our best to fend off and refuse applications where we can. But I know it's frustrating, and I know there are times when officers feel we simply don't have strong enough grounds for refusal, despite a 5-year supply and despite a local plan which is almost there. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, on the planning enforcement review, can I thank Councillor Spray for the approach she has taken, and would heartily concur that it could be a model for taking forward reviews on a cross-party basis on this authority. On the members' forums, can I gently suggest that it might not just be that the planning enforcement work took precedence. It is now about a year since they were announced. And it's good to hear that we could be moving forward to them starting sometime early in 2022. But are we as members, whether we're ward members or members of the planning committee or perhaps parish councils as well, going to be consulted in any way about the structure of these rather than just being told, thinking about the collegiate way of working? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Abbott. Yes, just on the enforcement member review group, yes, I mean, you were on that group and made very good contributions, as did everybody. And yes, I think I'm hoping there'll be a positive result. I say there are some budgetary issues. The final report will be coming round to members of the group fairly soon, because I don't think you've actually seen a very final report yet. I have presented it to cabinet members, but that will be coming round fairly soon. The members' forum, yes, there will be a consultation on that. Can't give you the exact time. It's got to be sort of fitted into, I think, a meeting of full council in the new year. But there will be a presentation and consultation on it. And well, actually, the enforcement issue has taken up a lot of time, not just the members' reference group, but also actually the workload that's gone on, which has involved members of the planning department as well as the enforcement team, the 2 High Court actions, which were very officer time intensive, plus, you know, they've been absolutely up to their eyes in dealing with a number of planning applications, so on, that come in. They have been very pushed. So, yeah, and I think for me, we need to make sure that the members' forum is done properly, that it gets off on the right foot. I don't want it to be a rushed process, so for that reason, I was content that we actually leave it until the new year, when we can give it the proper consideration it deserves. But yes, the members will be given a chance to have a look at it and see what is proposed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Could I just say on the issue of the A120 and pollution, I'm sure I speak for a number of members, many of whom are here: Councillor McKee, Councillor Schmidt, Councillor Bowers, Councillor Cunningham, Councillor Ritchie, all of whom represent wards which are actually suffering at this moment from pollution as a result of the A120 coming to a car park every day at the Galleys roundabout. And certainly we, representing the views of our constituents, will want to see an early resolution to that, if at all possible. Because when you look at that A120 and you see how many people and how many houses are directly impacted upon that, it is something which as I say, I'm sure I speak for all members who represent wards along that part of the A120. And I hope we won't lose sight of that fact. Yes, Councillor Abbott.
Galleys Corners in Cressing Ward, Silver and Cressing Ward.
I am talking, Councillor Abbott, about the A120, which you may not be aware of because you're not in that area, but leading up every day from about 2:30, 3:30, that traffic now comes back almost as far as Panners. And all of that pollution falls on both sides of the A120, whether it be Braintree South, Braintree West, Great Notley, or indeed parts as you go up. I'm not disputing that Galleys Corner itself is in there, but the actual number of people living in Galleys, around that area, just look at the map, they are along that stretch of the A120. That's all I'm saying. I'm not disputing the fact that Galleys Corner is in the ward of Silver End and Cressing. Okay? Right. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I think it's a fantastic document, and just to echo what colleagues have said, I think it sets us up really well for the next 18 months. A couple of points from my portfolio that I'd like to just highlight is the community engagement and volunteering. The last 18 months has shown us the strengths of communities and what can be achieved when we come together to support each other. And this plan highlights how what we need to harness that community spirit and build on that strength by increasing volunteering opportunities and supporting our vital voluntary sector across the district. We want to highlight the contribution that our community and voluntary sector is making through our Volunteer Awards programme, which recognises the dedication of our volunteers and the difference that they can make to our district and people. We will also continue to improve the way that we engage with our communities, encouraging more people to have their say on the things that matter to them. And as part of this, we will be setting up a young people's panel to give more young people a voice and to have their say on the future of our district. And the second point is community safety. Feeling safe in our communities remains a key priority, and we will continue to work through the Community Safety Partnership to keep our district safe, protecting local communities from crime and helping people to feel safer. Over the last 12 months, we have worked with partners to raise awareness on hidden harms, including exploitation and domestic abuse, and this will continue to be a priority for us. Not only will we seek to raise awareness externally, but we will also continue to train our own staff to support and empower those who are or have experienced exploitation or domestic abuse. Finally, Mr. Chairman, a number of the priorities in our document this evening does cut across Councillor Tattersall's portfolio, but I'd like to assure everyone that we work seamlessly together, dovetailing. Sometimes one is ahead of the other, but the other priorities are soon following up, and we will continue to do that over the next 18 months. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Any comments or questions at all? No? Okay. Colleagues, you will recall that we actually approved this at the last meeting under the circumstances that I outlined at the beginning of the meeting. I hope members will have found it, and people who may be watching, found it useful to hear from Cabinet members an extension of what they've done, and it's also enabled members of other members of other groups to ask questions as well. So I was keen that we shouldn't be seen to be sort of sliding something through without that. So can I thank all my Cabinet colleagues for the work that's been done, and of course their officers and the teams behind it. That of course is the programme for the next 18 months. The key thing now is actually delivering on that over the next 18 months, and that's of course is something which I will be holding colleagues to account for. So there's nothing more on that. I will move on to item 5B, the second quarter performance management report 2021-22. I'll deal very briefly with the performance stuff, and then I will ask Councillor McKee to take the financial performance. At the end of September 2021, 27 projects were completed, 24 were on track, and there were 2 projects which had amber status due to construction delays, and we know that that was the pedestrianisation of the town centre and the Victoria Square development. But I'm pleased to say that we're almost at the end of that now, thank you. And also in terms of our performance indicators, 7 performance indicators have met or exceeded target, 2 performance indicators have missed target by less than 5%, but there are 4 indicators that missed their target by more than 5%, and they are highlighted in the report. Commentary has been made to those indicators, advising of the reasons and, if applicable, the action that's going to be taken to improve performance. The key achievements in the second quarter, I think, which I would like to draw to the attention of colleagues, is that we've delivered a further 99 affordable homes in the second quarter, bringing the total delivered so far in 2021-22 to 190, So we're, as Councillor Barr said, well on our way to achieving our target. The redevelopment of the entrance of Whittam Town Park has now been completed, providing improved accessibility and public realm. Of course, during the last quarter, Council approved the climate change strategy and the cycling strategy, but again, the hard work starts now, converting that strategy those strategies into action. Councillor Mrs Smith has talked about the community trees and bulb initiative, and I'm delighted to see that that has started so well, and also good take-up by particularly the parish councils, but other people can apply, I think I'm right in saying, who may want to take advantage of that. We had another neighbourhood plan, Coggleshall neighbourhood plan was adopted. That now brings the total of neighbourhood plans in the district to 5. I think Coggleshall is a particularly important one, as it has one of the district's most historically important villages with more than 200 listed buildings within it. And I'm delighted that there are a further 8 neighbourhood plans now going through the process, and I certainly know that 2 of my parishes within my county division are also now actively thinking of developing that, so that's excellent. The main infrastructure, as we said, at Horizon 120, we now have the 2 new access roads from the A131 and the Central Spine Road, and the business park is also connected to power, data, water, sewerage and gas systems, and the landscaping is also complete, and I can say that the wildlife has readily found new homes on that, which is delightful to see. We've seen in recent months the street markets coming back into Braintree Town have been highly successful, and we had a very successful switch on of the Christmas lights. I had to smile, I must admit, when I saw on social media people complaining that there were too many people in the town centre. I thought that's what we wanted to do, was to get back. But still, one person views it one way and one person views it another. And then finally, there are leisure centres, because let's be honest, we have a significant resource in our leisure centres. They, across the district, have been able to increase their capacity in their phased approach to the gyms, the group exercise programmes, the swimming pools and the swim school programmes. And although there are some restrictions still in force, I'm delighted that participation levels are steadily increasing. And I think some of us had significant concerns about the viability of our leisure centre during the worst of the pandemic, and I'm pleased to say it does look as if we are coming out the other side in a relatively healthy way. Before I ask for questions, I'll pass over to Councillor McKee for a resume of the financial performance of the authority.
Thank you, Chairman. As of the end of September 2021, taking into account the projected impact of COVID and variations to the base budget, the net budget position forecast for the year is a positive variance of £383,000. The estimated budget impact of the pandemic in 21-22 is £915,000. This is expected to be offset by funding received from the government, currently leaving a balanced position. Expenditure during the account, other planned movements in balances, the projected change in general fund unallocated balance is a reduction of £253,000. Expenditure during the first half of the year on capital projects is 15.525. That's 15.525 million, with their spending mainly being incurred on Horizon 120 Business Park, as the leader was talking about. The infrastructure now completed, the new Horizon 120 Enterprise Centre, iConstruct, which you've heard much about earlier in the evening, a Manor Street regeneration scheme, town centre improvements, and the Halstead Leisure Centre artificial pitch. A piece of good news is the investment income is now projected to be £809,000, which is 100k better than projected in the original budget, derived from the short-term and long-term pooled funds, due mainly to the returns on pooled funds better than anticipated in February. Before I leave, I would like to point out in the main report on page 39 about the working days lost to sickness of our staff, which is 11% better than budget, which does show that despite COVID, despite all of the ills that our staff are maybe suffering, they've been turning up, showing up at work, whether it be at home or in the office or wherever it may be, and they are way below and looking like they're going to be better by the end of the year than our targeted 8 days. And I think that pays tribute actually to the staff, that they're not taking sick days or pulling a sickie, as it's known in the trade, that they're turning up and serving our residents. I just thought I'd make that point because nobody else has. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor McKee. Any comments or questions from anyone? Councillor Abbott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I would add support and welcoming for the tree and bulb scheme, and having picked up our ones for Rivenall, very good species mix of native trees. Excellent. I've got one question. On page 35, the cumulative target for planning permissions for 2 quarters is 540. Could the Cabinet member just give a little bit more information as to where that number comes from? Because presumably that equates to an annual target of 1,080. And whether she could say, once we've adopted the local plan, whether that number will change. In other words, become a simple division of our plan total. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor, I forgot which page. I didn't forget. I didn't hear what page you referred to.
30, sorry, Chairman, 35.
35. Thank you very much. Councillor Mrs. Spray.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. I have to say, actually, I can't give you the answer to that right now. I will find the answer for you, but no, I will be absolutely straight up and say that I can't answer the question on the spot, but I will find the answer.
And we'll circulate that to other group leaders as well, so that everybody gets the same answer,
Yes,
please.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. If there are no... Sorry, Councillor Bowers.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to, not to repeat what I said earlier, but just focus on the fantastic delivery on the affordable homes as part of this report, and how we've delivered over the first 2 months of this year 190 homes already, and last year we delivered 2020 on the year. I just wanted to sort of make, that's one of the reasons why at the moment the target was 150 per year, but we've actually increased that target in the new plan going forward for 500 over the 2 years, because obviously the delivery has been going from strength to strength, and we've noticed that, and we want to obviously continue that, and hopefully we will do that. But just wanted to bring the attention to what a fantastic achievement that is, and hopefully that will continue to exceed the target again over the next 2 years. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Would be remiss of me not to point to page 36 under promoting prosperity, the percentage of people in the district claiming out of work benefits, and to draw attention to the fact that the level is 3.7%, which is actually below the average for Essex, and certainly is nowhere near double the average, which was erroneously contained in a letter from a member of this council to the press. I'm glad we were able to correct that, but actually we're doing, I mean, having anybody out of work and claiming benefits is not good, but we are doing extremely well in terms of what is happening in this district, and we will continue to do all we can as a council to help people back into work at this stage. If there are no other comments or questions, are you happy to note the report? Agreed? Thank you. Move on then to item 6, the environment, 6A, joint parking partnership for North Essex, which is on page 50 of your agenda, and Councillor Mrs. Schmidt will introduce the topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just for any people who are listening, on-street parking is a responsibility of county councils. In 2011, Essex County Council split the county into 2 partnerships. The North Essex Parking Partnership, which was Braintree, along with Tindring, Colchester, Epping, Harlow, Uttlesford, and of course Essex County Council. At that time, Colchester Borough Council bid to be the lead authority. Now, this was a 7-year contract with an extension of 4 years, and this contract is now coming to its end. Over the last 6 months, discussions have been taking place between officers of the North Essex Parking Partnership and the South Essex Parking Partnership and Essex County Highways to shape a new contract. In September 2021, Essex County Council Cabinet approved the new joint committee appointment arrangements from April 2020 for a 5-year period with the option of extending it on an annual basis for 3 more years. I won't go into the detailed role of the partnerships as they are fully explained from items 3.9 to 3.19. We, as a council, looked at 2 options. The first one was to withdraw from the North Essex Parking Partnership and to negotiate a separate SLA with the North Essex Parking Partnership for off-street parking. It was considered that there is no value or benefit in this to Braintree District Council to pursue this option, and therefore we looked at to the proposed option 1, but with a change. At a meeting on the 28th of October this year, these new proposals were presented to the North Essex Parking Partnership. This caused some disquiet, as over the years, the excellent partnership had brought a loss-making operation to a healthy one. Essex County Council had put in the new proposals that a percentage of unallocated surpluses to be transferred to Essex County Council to spend on strategic highway priorities. The disquiet was that no elected members had any input into this and would have no say over how or where this surplus would be spent. It was suggested by members at the meeting that surpluses should be split between the member councils of the NEP. Braintree put forward a suggestion that the local highways panels were highly suitable to be the recipients of this money, as of course they knew which things needed doing within our district. So over to the recommendations. 2.1. To agree the Council's continued membership of the North Essex Parking Partnership Joint Committee with effect from 1st of April 2022 up to and including 31st March 2027. And here is the change. 2.1.2. Agree that the Cabinet Member for Environment will write to Essex County Council to consider an alternative model for dealing with unallocated surpluses in relation to Part 3 of the proposed operating model, paragraph 5.1, that would allow the local highway panels to determine how the funds are spent in their respective areas. And point 2.13, agree to delegate authority to the corporate director operational in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Environment to A, approve the new Parking Partnership Joint Committee Agreement, and B, approve the new off-street parking service level agreement with Colchester Borough Council for services relating to the Council's public car park, with effects from 1st of April 2020 in accordance with paragraph 4.7 to 4.10. Just to add to that, members, off-street parking is a completely different matter to on-street parking, as these are our own car parks, and that will be as a separate service level agreement. I so move, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mr. Smith. Any comments or questions at all? Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 52, obstruction is mentioned, and I presume that means obstruction on the road. A growing issue in the area I represent, and I'm no doubt other members will observe this, is the parking on pavements, which can involve the complete and utter obstruction of a footway, forcing people to walk in the road or onto private land. And I know the government's been talking about decriminalising this, which would therefore, I believe, become a function we would deal with. Has that been worked into the equation of this new arrangement at all? with NEP looking forward? That was my question. And then just a comment, I very much agree with the proposed course of action regarding surpluses going to the LHP.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. It has been discussed on many occasions because local authorities, as you know, it had been trialled in London for some number of years, where the London authorities had the responsibility for dealing with cars parking on pavements. So it has been discussed frequently at NEP. They've been waiting for government to make a decision, but it has been pointed out to government that it isn't quite so straightforward, particularly in rural areas. You can't just compare like for like with the City of London. And the problem, of course, is in rural areas, we have many very narrow streets. And if people were forced to park along the street, then it would very much limit the number of people who could park. And as we know, we have many rows of terraced houses that have nowhere on their own property to park, but also could in many places obstruct through-going traffic. So it's like everything, nothing straightforward. There's pluses and minuses. We know we've seen most terribly inconsiderate parking on pavements, which means that people in wheelchairs and mothers with prams can't get through. But then conversely, if these cars had to park onto the road, that means possibly refuse vehicles, fire engines and things couldn't get through. So there's nothing straightforward in this, and this has been relayed back to government, and we're still waiting on this. There has been views that in certain cases, because obviously local districts know their own areas and the problems, that parking on part of a pavement to a certain level would have to be allowed, because otherwise there is absolutely nowhere for cars to go. But nothing is set in stone yet. We're still waiting to hear. It's the long answer, I'm afraid.
Yeah, could I just add, thank you, Chairman. So my current understanding is the current enforcement is down to the police, but they're not enforcing it. So I take all that the Cabinet member said about the fact that it's a balancing act. But surely where a vehicle is willfully parked 100% across the footway, and they could park on the road without doing the things you said, surely it would be good for us at local authority level to be able to issue a ticket to that person to stop them from doing that again.
And I think we're all aware why the police force, have, it's sad to say, far more important and serious matters to deal with. But yes, as I said, but everything is a question of degree, and we're still waiting to hear from government.
Okay, if there are no other comments or questions, can I ask if you are happy to accept the recommendations which are on page 50 in powers 2.1 to 2.1.3? Are you happy to accept them? Agreed. Thank you. Right, there are no items to be considered in private session. There's no urgent business, and so I will declare this meeting closed at 8:32. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you to people who may have been watching or will watch a recording of this. Thank you very much, and good night.